Welcome everybody to a new video. Today we're going to be making a Marshall Acton speaker. I've been wanting to make one of these for a little while. They look quite fun, look quite fashionable, snazzy, so let's give it a try. I won't try to speak all the way through the video, but try and explain a little bit what we're doing here. The first thing you'll notice is again, as always, reference. I found a few different models of this speaker, so it was a little bit hard to find one which matched in size and style. I actually took the real world measurements from the internet. Always build to scale, real world scale. It's important. So you see a different reference at the top here. It matched a little bit closer to what I wanted to build. The actual case wasn't too difficult really. I mean, it's very simple. It's a box with some beveled edges. And because everything is just pretty much flat, you don't really need to take so much care with the topology. We tried to make it quite nice, but it's not the end of the world if we create a few triangles, which we ultimately do, just to keep the vertices low. Don't be fooled by how smooth this is going. I did actually make this top piece 2 or 3 times. It's very easy to see someone sit and model something, and you assume like, wow, this goes really fast and everything's planned out, but it's planned out because we've maybe tried 2 or 3 times. It's not necessarily because it's wrong, just because, you know, it's you want to have good topology. I mean, the amount of the size of a circle, so we have good connections to the outside, obviously makes a difference. I think my first ever, I had too many vertices in my circle, which made it hard to connect at the top. Making this speaker wasn't so difficult really. I mean, there's nothing really advanced here. We will get into using arrays for the front mesh, which I wanted to do using actual geometry, not just a texture. But the most fun part about building this was actually the texturing process, which is in Marmoset, which I haven't recorded. Again, if anybody wants to see me working in Marmoset, just throw me a comment. I'm interested to know what people like to build. I mean, I quite like building these objects, just general household objects, are quite fun. They're quite easy. They're quite relaxing. But the modelling and building I actually want to do is maybe a little bit more character design. But I find it really hard to sit down and build characters, to sculpt. I think it's quite difficult, and I don't know, maybe it's fear of failure. But these kind of objects, I can just sit down whenever and just build and build and build, and it's fine, it's fun, it's relaxing. But I'm running into this issue where the thing I really want to do, I don't find that relaxing. This is important. We've just skipped by it. I did an edge on the lower parts in the middle. Make sure you always, even if there's edges which are not going to be seen, bevel all your edges, because it makes a big difference with the lighting. It's always a good idea to name your objects also. I think I've named one object right now. I do get to it eventually. It's important when you have a scene with a lot of objects and you want to start cleaning up a little bit, taking things away which you don't need. You probably realised I'm recording the audio to these videos after the fact. It's because I have kids and a family, and there's absolutely no way that I can build and record in anything resembling silence. So I generally sit down, model and record, go in afterwards and edit the videos, and come back here and just record the audio afterwards. It's working so far. And considering the amount of times that you build, make errors, stop, back up, delete, I mean, there's a risk that you miss a good amount of audio. You have to sit down and repeat yourself the whole time. So this is where we cheat a little bit with the topology. There was a time when everything I did was quad based, absolutely everything, and I realised from videos and other artists that you don't always need to. I mean, this surface at the back is completely flat, and you could do connections, but you would have quite high amounts of vertices, and it's unnecessary. It's not going to be animated, it's not going to be deformed. You do not need to have good topology here. Something crazy here happened with the vertices. I think they went on the inside. I think I made a small error here also. When I made this cutout shape at the back, I should have made the shape and extruded straight away, because now you see I'm going to go in and add some kind of bevel around the outside. Here I think fails, and I face it in and inset and scale it out manually. It would have been easier just to do it beforehand. I'd like to now and again put on go to render view to get a better idea how the edges look, even if it's just without a material but clay. You get a better idea of how things look. See, here I was smart enough to actually do the loop, the edge loop beforehand, the inset. The reference at the top here doesn't completely match the speaker I'm actually making. The three knobs in the middle are correct, and the levers on the input levers on the left and the right. Now you see a reference of what I'm trying to build, but they didn't really match in size, so I'm just playing it by ear a little bit. My speaker only has two light sources to the left, which is quite fun. I don't think I've ever made anything with a light source before. Maybe a car. I try and speed up the video a little bit through these when you're facing up areas like this. I mean, it's nothing exciting to see here. Everybody knows how to do it pretty much. I mean, I could potentially just show myself joining one or two faces then skip it completely, but I don't know. I guess you guys can just skip the video. I rely quite heavily on the symmetrize option in this video. It's my new favourite tool. I used to use the mirror modifier a lot, then found out that the symmetrize is quicker. we start to do a little bit of labeling here. It has to be done anyway. In the end, when you bake and texture in Marmoset, you need to import high and low poly mesh, so you can save yourself time by just adding names early in the process. I think there's a top piece to this knob which I was unsure whether to do it as a whole object or just separate it completely. I decided to separate it because the lower part, which is made of rubber, is going to need a lot of polygons for the displacement modifier. The grooves we're gonna use with the texture, and it was unnecessary to have so much geometry on the top piece. I tried to parent together pieces which are gonna need displacement. See this under edge here, you can see I always do an inset. Even if you're not going to see it, this bottom edge, if you bevel it and do an inset, you will see the curve. I mean, this is one of the biggest things about cheating in 3D. You want to cheat as much as you can, but you don't want to cheat on things which make a difference. And these small beveled edges, like what I'm doing now, they catch light all the time, and even if you don't maybe notice it at first, just in your head it will scream at you that something is wrong. And that's what differentiates between realism and computer generated. This video is quite short in the end, just over an hour, but the build process was a lot longer. Obviously I've cut out a lot of small pieces which nobody needs to see, and playing around with the array modifiers. Then the whole texturing process took maybe twice as long as the build itself. Here I was just trying to duplicate the top piece, but something kept going wrong and I keep getting the whole object. Still geometry where you can. This piece is essentially a replica of the top piece of the volume. I mean, it's, for anybody who does this a lot, it shouldn't be a big surprise, but I realised how much UV space I needed for these small objects in the end. When I imported them into Marmoset, I was trying to do some snazzy decals. If you look at these buttons, they have some kind of engraving on the top, which look really good. But the buttons themselves are very, very small. So I tried to unwrap everything in the same. Everything is relative in size, but in the end I had to go in and really play with the texture space to get these buttons to have a good decal on top. We have a turntable at the end, so you can see the finished project. You might be able to see it from that angle. You see here the decals on top of your buttons, just like a spiral, and they do not look good if you have a very small texture map. I think I maybe made this at 8K in the end. I think I realised after the fact, at the very end of the video, these input plugs are made a little bit too low. They need to be bigger in their z-axes. I do eventually go in and increase the height. I don't think it was in the video. I think it might have been something between the texture and process that I realised, and I went in and edited the geometry. Never be afraid to go back. This is a pretty good tip. Whenever you want to make something which is round, I used to always use the UV sphere, but obviously you have this problem where the poles become triangles, and you could almost never get it to look nice and smooth. So a great tip I picked up somewhere was just take a cube, subsurface twice, 2 subsurface modifiers, and you get this round sphere, and it works just as well, and you don't have the issue with the poling. this is one of those situations where if I went back, I probably would build this a bit differently. I think I actually built this to be subdivided to have a subsurface. But I mean, I think you could easily get away with making this with just maybe beveling. Just trying to make here so the subdivision looks okay. Again, I think this may be a little bit overkill on this this piece. Yeah, if I built this again, I would definitely do it differently. Oh well. It's starting to take shape anyway. We have good geometry in general for this outer casing. I'm just trying to tighten up these corners without destroying it too much. I think we collapse a few edges later, just to clean things up. Sometimes a good solution is just collapse the edges that you know that you're okay to collapse, and then just consider and move forward a little bit and just try and collapse as much as you can without destroying the surface, the shadows and reflections. This outer casing is going to be leather, so it's not such a big problem. It's going to look good regardless. Here I take the back piece and the outer case and go into edit mode at the same time, just so I can use the loops on the outer casing to see how to try and get the same kind of curvature. I'm just basically lining them up. Sometimes it's good to use your own eye. I think on the actual model, I don't think these panels, back and front panels, are inset so much. I think they're just flush with the outer surface, but I mean, with our model, it actually looks better if you inset them a little bit. You can see the differentiation between the two panels. It also shows off the fact that we've done a bit of work also. There is two different panels there. I think ultimately there's two different materials on them anyway, but you know, it's the details. This is a default screw you can use with the bolts add-on, but they are always ridiculously overworked. You can see how much geometry into a simple screw. We're going to have maybe 15-16 screws, so I try to collapse them as much as possible. I mean, the smart thing to do would be to do this once and save it in your file browser so you can just pick these screws out, but I never learn. I think every single time I use a screw I go through the same process. I mean, I'm not too hard on myself, to be fair. If you're opening Blender just to modify a screw and saving it, then you haven't got much going on that day. Generally don't like the shape of these screws either. I'm sure people look at my modelling process and think I do too much. I maybe do too much. But I don't know, I mean, I think it's all in the details. I say a lot of people make models and you look at where edges end and other panels start and you just think that just really looks like a flat piece of plane and there's no depth to it. It takes 2 seconds extra just to do an inset, a curve, just to make it look like there's some depth there, and it makes all the world of a difference when you come to rendering time. I think people hear the idea that you should cheat in 3D and take it a little bit too literally. You cheat in 3D by not modelling things which does not need to be seen. There's nothing on the inside of this speaker which we're modelling. The three knobs, the tuner and the volume, the bass, we're not doing holes for them to go down into because you will never see it. We did do it for 2 pieces. One of them specifically because we have the on and off switch which needs to go down into the hole. The input cable we did it also because there needs to be a black hole down into the center there. But otherwise, I mean, you need to model everything which is going to be visible. Now we're making the mesh, and this is going to be a array process. I'm not going to show the entire mesh process. I don't think I do anyway. I think I do. I show a little bit of this, and then I go in afterwards and maybe finesse it a little bit, make it look a little bit better, a little bit nicer. And one thing I learned here also was when I UV unwrapped this mesh, first of all I unwrapped the entire mesh after I collapsed the array modifiers, but I realised the smarter idea would be just to unwrap the small initial square of mesh, because the mesh is so small you don't see any kind of pattern on it, you see the colour. So we were taking up huge amounts of UV space by unwrapping the entire mesh, and in the end I did just unwrap this little square and it looked just as good, and we saved loads and loads of UV space. I mean, this process is fairly simple. I did make a balls up of it, to be fair. I'm looking at it now and thinking, what on earth am I doing? It's not that hard to make a repeating pattern. You can see that bit overlapping a little bit. Also, the array offset isn't correct here, but we get there. Just means I need to maybe, I think I end up correcting at the end. But it's not that bad, it's only a few pieces of cube mesh. The idea is sound anyway. I think this is where I realise they're overlapping. I don't know how I missed it. There's a reasonable chance that I had kids running around, screaming. So here you can see I can fit the mesh together, but I do go in afterwards and correct it a little bit because it's not exactly sitting together as it should be. But I mean, the purpose is to show everybody how I achieve a result. Maybe not exactly to sit here and bore you for 15 to 20 minutes of moving pixels around. Scaling's also important. You maybe wonder how I worked out the scaling. I sat and I counted how many rows there was. That's how bored I was. It's a very good point also. A lot of people, I mean, scaling is hugely important. I see a lot of people get all their scaling wrong. See, now it looks really good actually. I'm still really happy with the way the mesh turned out. Behind the mesh, I think there is some kind of cloth material. So we create a plane and just simply throw some kind of texture on it later in Marmoset. Otherwise, you quite possibly see right into the speaker. So this is the power input. Couldn't exactly cheat here in any way. It was just to make it again. I always think at one point I found the inset tool and I wonder how I survived without it before. How did I inset stuff before I knew how to inset stuff? I don't think I have made an object in the last 5 years without using inset in some way. I'm trying to use the might be the Node Wrangler add-on, or maybe the F2, where you can just press F and face things up. It's not working here. Not exactly sure why. So I'm forced to do it by hand, like a caveman. I make these two metal plug objects separate piece of mesh. It's dark in this hole. There's no way you're gonna see if it's connected or not, so it's better to keep it a separate mesh. It makes life a lot easier for us. Always check your scaling before you use the bevel modifier. You get some crazy results. Now we just steal some geometry to punch a Boolean hole in the back of the panel here. I think I also sped up this part of the video also. getting there, not far to go. Although maybe I'll cut these parts out in the future to show myself connecting a few edges and then just skip it. Now I'm watching this back, I kind of realise it's a little bit pointless, maybe, I don't know. If you're a real beginner, it's probably useful to see this, but otherwise, maybe not so much. So progress here, not so much left. This panel needs scaling up a little bit, you can see in through the edges. So now, the logo. The logo. So now we're back onto the logo. I sped this up also, I'm not going to show the whole process. But the one thing I would say is, you can see that I started with the black border and tried to inset inwards. Don't do this. The most important part of this logo is the gold text, and you'll see at the end that I didn't get a good result at all. It looked very thick and wobbly and not so good, so I did actually go back in afterwards and redo this. So follow this process, but instead take the gold text and then extrude outwards instead. You'll see when I get to the end. So here we go. This is the final product. Well, final so far. Then we do the inset, which in general actually worked quite well. I mean, you see we've got the good thickness here, and it's just to clear the geometry. But when we add the subsurf and extrude outwards, you see that the gold part does not look great. I could have maybe refilmed it, but I didn't. The process is still pretty much the same. It wasn't so easy to get a good selection around the border here, so I had to do it with hand pretty much. The here looks okay. I'm pretty happy with the result here. It's when I start to add the materials that you see, but it does not look at how it's meant to. I start to adjust a little bit here to make sure I get the shape. But it was too much to adjust. It was actually more time efficient just to start over. So if you see here, if you compare the two, you can probably pause the video just to compare. A lot of the edges are too thick. And from a distance, I think it just looks, the logo looks very off. It's probably the most important parts of the model, to be honest, so I didn't want to just let it go. It's not unusual when I actually complete a project and I start texturing and I change my mind on certain details, so I can go back into Blender and just redo something, rebuild, re-export. I think sometimes you need to be proud enough to go back and just say, this is crap. Now, it's just a few screws that I missed from the feet. They have a screw right in the bottom. Probably quite pointless. I don't think anyone is gonna look under here. But I did it anyway. So I think the model's pretty much done now. This is why I realised I really hate the logo. Just here debating what I should do. I'll ultimately stick with it for now, and then I'll go back in afterwards and redo it, obviously. Just doing some last checks to make sure that I'm happy with everything. Yeah, there was this last little strip also which we missed. So here's the final result, the final turntable. Turned out quite nicely. I'm happy with it. Probably could have adjusted the colours. I mean, it looks very contrasty, but I'm happy. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.